All right, we'll call to order this Town of Weddington regular planning board meeting. Monday, November the 17th, 2025, 7 p.m. We have a determination of quorum, as I see everyone is present. And I'm going to read our conflict of interest statement. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters on the agenda? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the matter involved. Good, Bill?
Nope.
Good?
Good.
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 All is good. All right, moving on. Do we get a motion for approval of minutes for October the 27th regular planning board meeting?
Motion to move approved minutes of October 27th regular planning board meeting.
Get a second?
I'll say that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. That was done. Moving to public comments. Individuals are allowed 3 minutes to speak and must only comment on current agenda items. A maximum of 30 minutes is allocated to the public comment period. The time limit may be extended at the discretion of the chairman. I see we have no speakers, so we'll move through that one. Number 6, old business. Discussion and possible recommendation of D917 text changes as proposed from workshop. Greg, you want to give a little touch up on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. As a light refresher, the section D917 is our requirements basically for new developments in the town of Weddington. D917A being applicable to everyone, D917B applicable only to conservation development, so on and so forth. We've created a D917E, which is additional requirements for major subdivisions or kind of conventional subdivisions. Very broadly speaking, our intention in tweaking this code section is to discuss how to better differentiate and preserve buildable versus unbuildable lands. We discussed this at our regular meeting on October 27th, and we actually had a workshop on this earlier this month to discuss this D917 section. We mainly talked about D917E, but it broadly applies to this entire section of code. So we have it listed on the agenda. It's just D917. When we met that Thursday, we agreed to amend these kind of text changes. I basically left immediately after that, and so members of our board graciously kind of took up that topic and took the ball from where we were with our planning workshop. Special thanks to Bill for providing attachments and additional exhibits for our context. I would also like to note that our new permit technician and planning assistant, Jaslyn, she also took up this topic at that time period between the workshop and today, and provided some examples as well, which we have in the slides. But with that, I would just introduce the topic to the board at large and to the public who's attending our regular meeting, who may have missed our workshop, where we are with the status of this. I have some slides just for reference that we can go back and forth on. You know, this will be hard to read if you're not referencing your packet, but this is what Bill has provided to you all as far as some text amendments. This is what we had talked about prior to the workshop, so it's very similar, but there are some important tweaks here. And then we have some visual exhibits as well as actual appendix changes that Jaslyn has proposed. And when the time comes, we'll have her speak on those items. But just introducing that topic of our buildable versus unbuildable land discussion as a text amendment to section D917.
Awesome.
with that, yeah, I'll leave it to Bill and or Jaslyn. I think we'll have Bill go first. But then I do specifically want to give Jaslyn an opportunity to not only introduce herself to the public and this board, but to provide her proposed changes as well, because I think they're great.
Great. All right, Bill, you want to start with your,
I don't have a whole lot. When we talked about it last week, we were trying to, at least when I first presented, I was trying to make them run parallel and very similar. And then after a lot of discussion, we thought, well, Greg, what do you think? Greg says, well, normally when a builder comes in, he's either going to do this one or this one. And so trying to make them run parallel wasn't, he felt, and I tend to agree with him now from what he said, was not that critical. So basically what you see here is when we're talking about conservation residential, we're using, instead of net acreage, and I think at the workshop, we were pretty much on board with using adjusted tract acreage. That's basically taking out the non-buildable. And then we talked about secondary conservation, which would be the other land. Make it simple, you cut it in half. You can build on that half, the other stays where it is. We had some discussion on the priority of secondary, and we talked about, well, should we have a priority for primary? And we basically said, well, primary doesn't have a priority. It's not buildable. So we went to secondary. I did send a note out, and I don't know whether it's to the whole board or whether it just went to staff, where if you go into the definitions for steep slopes, it says 15%. Every place else in the UDO, it says 25%. So I'm making the assumption the 15% was a typo, and it should be 25 everywhere. And if that's the case in the agreement, I think that's just an administrative change. And that was pretty much it. We talked about conservation lands. I think Steve was saying, well, we need a definition of primary and secondary. So that's in there. There is some discussion Steve may want to bring up about view shed, where it belongs and what it is. And that was pretty much it. Well, kind of a summary of where we were. And because we didn't want to really take any real action until we had the full planning board here, that's where we were.
Yeah, if I may, some of the changes that our packet has versus our initial discussion is, this is the original text. It talks about prioritizing conservation lands. We noted that, if we're denoting primary conservation lands, there's no priority. That's the area we don't want to build on. So this section doesn't really apply. And so it's more correctly labeled here as the priority of the secondary conservation lands. We have, again, our definition of primary conservation lands rather than talking about their traits. And then just some additional information about definitions and specifically defining primary open space. So that's kind of our key takeaway of this discussion is we're saying there's something called primary open space. It's like conservation lands, but it applies in subdivisions regardless. This is an area that we don't want to build on. This is an area that we want developers to specifically label and set aside to show that this is an area that's not suitable for development. So if you take, let's say, a 100-acre tract and like against some wetlands, these are lands that they were never going to build on anyway. So we're not necessarily going to give them credit for it, but we want them to denote those areas that as being sensitive and give them credit basically for preserving that land. And does that denoting them as primary conservation lands or primary open space in this case. And then discussing these open space areas. I think this is a good transition for Jaslyn to speak because she's provided some exhibits here. They're not in your packet, but they were provided while I was away, and so I got those today that show kind of some visual
You got enough for,
exhibits.
are they all the same?
Each one's a set, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it?
there's 3
Yeah.
sets, sorry. So, hi, my name is Jaslyn. I'm the permit technician, and currently in the UDO, there is not a checklist for the sketch plan for conservation residential developments. There's the schematic plan for conventional residential development, but not for conservation. So I thought to go alongside the potential text amendment changes to D917 that we could also include maybe another appendix, like an appendix 2D that has a checklist for everything that you need for the requirements for open space that go alongside the sketch plan that's required for RCD developments. And it has clear definitions of what is required for primary open space and adjusted tract acreage yield with the calculations of how to calculate adjusted tract acreage yield, and then also how it should be displayed as a part of the sketch plan, and potentially having a visual aid to how it should be displayed for all of the different requirements. Because right now it's kind of like all the requirements are scattered across the UDO, so having it in a consolidated place. Yes.
Jaslyn, if we have questions, should we wait till the end or ask them as you're going?
You can ask now.
'Cause I just have one question. That is, we talk about sketch plan,
Mhm.
and in the past with Exhibit 2B, we moved away from sketch plan and went to the term schematic plan because it had more specific definition and requirements for a developer. So I'm not sure how that plays in here. So it's just a question.
I think sketch plan meaning the plan required for conservation RCD.
Basically, your pre-application site plan. So what we're looking at,
Oh, pre-application.
before we have the public vote. So we had talked about before that kind of during the charrette and site walk, at the application phase, we'd like these areas designated more clearly. So that would, even when we're out doing a site walk of the property, we know that the primary lands are designated over here. So this is kind of a earlier checklist for them that when they get the project started, hey, here's the raw land. We're setting aside this area versus this area, and here's the visuals. And so she's provided this kind of sketch plan open space requirement example. So basically the kind of the yield plan stage of showing these areas being designated. And then there is a reference to the schematic plan, the document that you guys would vote on here in this Appendix 2B. We would supplement Appendix 2B item B25 by saying the percentage of open space required and provided, and then further defines the expectations of what that open space plan shows.
And then the visual example also has some numbers that further show the calculations that adjusted tract acreage yield is the gross acreage minus the primary open space or primary conservation lands, however you guys want to name it. But
I think the visuals are great. The only thing I would say is, just looking at this tonight for the first time, probably would like to have some time to really look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing I'm just want to make sure that I thought from the other meeting that, and it's not even really this, I think it's in both parts of this and what Bill had done. I thought in RCD, we wanted to be the term primary conservation and then primary open space to be utilized in our regular subdivision.
Traditional.
Yeah. So whereas like 2D has the primary open space, that would be conservation in this situation for this little checklist. And the same in, I believe in 917B to Bill's, I think we want, did I not see open space somewhere in there?
We talk about, there's
No, it's good there. I guess I saw it somewhere.
primary open, basically,
There's a lot of iterations floating around.
Yes.
yeah, if you're doing a conservation subdivision, we refer to primary conservation, secondary conservation. If you're doing a conventional subdivision, that's where we started using primary open space, which to me is the equivalent of primary conservation. And then, I don't know whether we said secondary open space or we just said open space.
Well, no, in RCD, it would be conservation, correct?
For
So-
RCD,
Conservation area.
Yeah, so in this,
Secondary
just in this little
conservation.
checklist, which she's on it. Put a
Okay.
checklist for them
I'm with
to
you.
find somewhere to go, but primary open space, secondary open space would be conservation in this situation of a
Oh,
checklist.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Rest of this is all supportive, so now they know. Basically, here's the guide for them to start, and they're going to get something, and they're going to show Greg. Easily, their exhibit shows we're going to have it denoted to where it's not, we're not sitting here going, where is this, where is that, and the same for when they show up at the first kind of conceptual meeting for everybody. Correct?
Yeah,
It's
so
kind of the guidelines for.
our two objectives here are clear definitions and deliverables to you guys. So a clear definition of what these primary lands are. The issue that we're coming to before is that we're kind of using conservation lands very broadly when to truly be conservation property is something that you're deeding over and protecting in perpetuity. So we don't want to use that too loosely. So that's why we came up with that primary open space designation as well. And, secondly, we want a deliverable. So we need exhibits or visuals like this to say, this is what we're looking for. And if you don't have this kind of exhibit when you get to the site walk and specifically the planning board, then you're not really clearly showing the area that we want set aside. And we're going to have a lot of questions. We might have to table your project because you're not showing it clear enough.
Yes.
So
But great job. I'm all for this. Just want to make sure we're using those terms.
Yeah, I can be changed to primary and secondary conservation lands. Yeah.
Got it. Good job.
Having said that, however, because we do have a bit of a parallel path, do we want to have this also laid out for conventional so that they have the checklist and understand, open space and
Well, my idea was that there is kind of already a checklist for the schematic plan so that we could just beef up the schematic plan a little more for conventional. So on the second part over here, it would just have an amendment adding more information about primary open space or primary conservation land.
I think what I liked, and it at least it clarified for me, Greg, when you called it a pre-application. So I think there's been a lot of, I'll say, confusion and uncertainty around the term sketch. So I don't know whether we call it pre-application plan or something. And maybe it's just me that we wrestled so much with sketch plan and schematic plan several months back.
Yeah, I don't think this is replacing it. I think this is just a step before.
Yeah.
And almost using sketch in the appropriate place.
correct. That's what I was going to say. I don't know if using schematic plan as our end means we can't use sketch plan, although we're trying to not have some of our work.
Yeah.
And again, this is for conservation, not the regular conventional, correct?
The exhibit and then the checklist is for conservation. The schematic plan amendment would be for conventional. And if you would like an exhibit for conventional, I could also make an exhibit that shows the overlap between primary open space and the open space requirement percentage as well, if that would be also helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we're going less than 2 weeks from the last time we talked about this to
Yeah.
now. There's no rush to try to get this as a button-up text amendment. I
Yeah.
think we're all just trying to be very deliberate about, we moved to the term schematic, but we still have to reference sketch sometimes.
Yes.
We're referencing open space, but it applies to two different types of RCD subdivisions that you could do. It's all very complex, and we're
Yes.
trying to simplify it.
I think this is great. Again, as long as we're making sure terminology other than that, I think this is.
Yeah, I'd just like to look at it
Yes,
and give us some time to look at it,
Yep,
and,
yep.
One question I do have with regard to the delineation between conservation land and open space. When we look at conservation land and RCD development, that is deeded conservation land in perpetuity.
Correct.
Boom. How's open space delineated in perpetuity? Where does it delineate that as being?
It's lands owned by the HOA, but they don't necessarily have to preserve it, or they don't necessarily have to keep the trees up, or they don't have to
Yeah.
leave it in a natural state.
So if it was just
So we have-
HOA open space, we can turn a picnic shelter on it. They can amenitize it more so than conservation land is set
Yeah,
aside.
conservation is conservation land, so RCD, everything that is designated, all that additional space is designated as conservation land. In R40, according to this, with the open space, you have conservation land that would be anything delineated as wetlands by the Corps of Engineers, or in that space, that would always be
Primary open space.
That would be it, but it would still be conserved because the Corps is not going to let you build on that.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be deeded as
It wouldn't be
conservation.
deeded.
It would just be bylaws of HOA as open space.
So my question is, are we defeating the purpose by not requiring that to be held in perpetuity as undevelopable land?
There is in the UDO, whether it's referring to conservation land or open space, that it's in perpetuity, because the question came up, someone wanted to know if they could buy the open space by their house, whatever. And it says it can only be done with 100% approval of all of the HOA members and 100% approval of the mayor and town council.
I'll give another example of like an actual Weddington example. We have numerous subdivisions that are trying to close out their bonds. The developer is the builder trying to leave and transfer management over to the HOA, basically the residents of the subdivision. And these ideas of kind of their neighborhood green or these open spaces that they can use versus the areas that are trees that they can't use has been kind of a sticking point in terms of their funds, how much money they have set aside for each year for maintenance. And so we're trying to clarify that as well, as that, just because a floodplain is in open space and it's not deeded in perpetuity to some, conservation organization, doesn't mean you can build on it. Doesn't mean you can build a house on it. Doesn't mean it's not your maintenance responsibility. And so those are some of the things we're trying to clear up too. So for your point, Rusty, we're trying to use this primary open space label to show these ecologically sensitive or important lands, regardless of the subdivision type. So it may not be a conservation land that's shown on a deed or shown on the final plat, but these are areas that the developer has clearly shown up front that not only should they not build on, but they can't build on. And so we're trying to get a kind of deliverable map that says this back area is floodplains. We're not trying to get credit for that. We're not saying that's anybody's backyard. We're saying we have to put this in at the bare minimum HOA common open space so nobody builds on it and nobody disturbs it.
Yeah, I think that the primary open space definition that we have here is really not adequate. Primary open space in a conventional subdivision is going to be the same as the definition wise, or the technical part of it is going to be the same as primary conservation land in an RCD subdivision. So definition that's in here means a portion of the tract set aside in conventional developments for permanent and perpetual protection as required by the UDO. It doesn't really tell me what it is. It just
Well,
says it's in the
if you-
UDO somewhere.
If you go to the section
Actually,
On
it
the
says it
U-
above that.
on the UDO, which is section DO4C and D. It's page 33 on my hard copy, but the difference between this hard copy and electronic. That's what I was referencing.
Because it's the same, it's really the same land. It's
Right.
bad land, and it can't be built on.
So in the kind of the open space definition above the primary kind of spells out all of the open space. Then it goes one step further with primary open space means basically the portion set aside in conventional development. The top more is permanent and perpetual in conservation.
The top is what it can be used as, right?
The open
Pretty much,
space
the open space.
means the land area, water features, enhances,
That's
creates.
just open space, right? But the primary open space is what we're gonna say you can't build on, and we're gonna do minus that from your yield. So it
Correct.
really has the same definition as the primary conservation lands, which is, it's gonna be submerged land, floodplain, steep slopes greater than 25%.
But primary
Oh,
conservation.
no, I get what you're saying. Basically, copy and paste, basically the same definition to a degree, just call it primary open space and conventional.
Right.
But I got,
So now
okay.
you know
Okay, I
exactly
got
what you
you.
have to pull out
I follow what you're saying
of
now.
your yield.
Yeah, you could even have the existing definition that's provided here by Bill, but just say similar in reference to 917 BE primary conservation lands or something to that effect.
Yeah,
Because I think what we said last time was what you said, and then add that one sentence saying it can never be built on, which is what Bill did without doing the first part. So yeah, if we take the definition of primary conservation land, move it to primary open space, and then add the sentence that also means that the portion of the tract set aside for in conventional development for permanent and perpetual protection as required by this UDO. I think that's what we're after.
right, but now we just gotta be careful. What we're saying is that it can't be built on, but are we going to say that we cannot do anything else on it?
Well, I'm sitting here looking
I
at,
don't even know if
I'm
you
looking
can
at
say it
definition
can't be
right now. It
built
says
on.
mailboxes,
Yeah,
play
I
fields.
wanna say in a
And you can't do that
conventional,
on conservation land, so.
correct.
why
I don't
you-
want to say in conventional that we would use the word it can't be built on. Because somebody could probably put a shelter.
Right, right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If there was a flat enough land, you might wanna put some picnic tables or something like that over there. So conservation land, that would be a no, right? But in a.
The conservation land, you could put, secondary conservation land, you could put a picnic table.
Right, secondary, but we're really talking about primary, right?
Oh, on the open
picnic
space?
table, not necessarily like a picnic shelter.
Shelter, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's to remain in its
I
natural
just wanna get it as
state.
clear as
so no, I
possible.
think you're right. I think it's just, I don't even want to say I would put anything to build on. I almost think it's just a copy and paste of
Yeah.
the,
We're just calling it open space as far
In
as
this-
conventional
yes,
subdivision.
yes.
So they know exactly what they have to pull out of the yield when they do their yield plan.
But, okay, when we talked last time, conservation land, it comes out as you're doing the yield plan calculation. That's it. Open space, if you've got 20% primary open space, that will count towards the 20% open space you need in total.
Correct.
Yes, so.
And if you
so it
had,
Where
still
it does
comes out of
not.
the Yield,
huh?
Where you got, where we've X'd out in D17B on conservation that, not more than 50%, well, it says 0, but I think it was not more than 50% of the minimum required area of conservation shall be comprised of, wetlands. I thought that was secondary. Yeah. For secondary land. We pulled that out of conventional so that there is no, whatever we pull in primary open space is also credited to their,
yes.
Correct,
it's not
but not for conservation land.
correct.
And
Not
if,
what meant to be for conservation.
right,
Right,
so if I've got a situation where I've got 25% primary open space, unbuildable, I'm required to have a minimum of 20. Well, that other 5%, that's just, you lose that.
that's right.
But so primary open space is the non-buildable portion for Weddington. And if it's only 10% of the 20% that they need, then the other 10% is open space.
That's right.
That's where you get into the open space, which can have the cluster
That's right.
mailboxes,
That's
the
correct.
entrance
Right.
monuments. That
Right. I mean, to me, primary open space for conventional is the same thing as primary conservation for RCD.
Yes.
I'd almost read as
we just
primary
need to
open
follow that.
space is extreme limitations, streams, valleys, swells, submerged land, floodplain, steep slopes greater than 25%, and other lowland areas. I don't know, we need to say unbuildable or not buildable, but
No, we don't. I don't think we need to say that. We
Yeah.
just copy the same definition as the.
I've
You
been
still have-
trying to avoid that unbuildable
I agree.
designation for the
I agree, or not to be
purposes of
built on.
takings.
I agree.
It'll be consistent. They'll see the same thing on both.
So you still have primary open space in an RCD.
You can still have other
But-
open space. If they give more than what was required to be in conservation, that just becomes.
Because, with this being
Green space or-
entrances and that sort of thing in an RCD, you'll still have that same open space designation.
You got to have a minimum of 20. If you've got 25 as primary, you've met your 20. If you've got 10 as primary, you got to come up with another 10.
Yeah, and I think that taking a bunch of steps back, that's really what we're trying to portray here. Is like, if you want to build in Weddington, you either have to have 20% or 50% of this land set aside as not a building pad. That's a
Correct.
significant
Or on
challenge.
private property.
Yeah, that's not private property, so that's a significant
Right.
challenge.
Right.
Your pro forma has to make that make sense, and you have to do the work up front for that to be shown as a worthwhile endeavor for us as well. So
And that's 50% of the adjusted tract acreage because you're taking out the, okay.
So we're setting the expectation up front. Like, guys, this is going to be tough for you to build this in Weddington, but here's the rules. They're clear. We all have an understanding of what they are, and these are the deliverables we're trying to get to you. We've got Jasline's kind of exhibit here, which I think I heard from folks that we kind of want a primary open space example of that as well. So it applies to any type of subdivision. And then
Especially that little sketch right there would be perfect.
And then we've got Bill's exhibit here that was in your packet that shows that as well, to how that could potentially be set aside with the clustering of homes and lots.
And Bill, you did this, the little,
I did. I didn't
I got
trust
you.
my grandson because you guys thought his drawing was too
but we got
crude.
what it is, and I would even further
is
take a step to let maybe
Not
her get
super
a,
clear to me.
Oh, yeah. No, I
Get this.
like Jasline's a lot better.
yeah.
No,
But
I think, yeah, we met on this 6 business days ago. I think we've already made another big step towards the comprehension of it. I think we need another meeting to actually vote on it and have the text.
I agree. So back to Bill's little one, on where you did 917B,
Yes.
at minimum 50% of the adjusted tract yield. Did we mean to get rid of that next paragraph with the minimum required area of conservation land shall not be comprised?
More than 0% of the.
I don't know why it says 0. I thought there was something about it that we couldn't use X amount in conservation.
The 0 was changed in a previous text amendment. I don't want to get into that, but if we want to change it back. and
So
change it-
you're good with us removing that and adjusted yield track, the way kind of he has it going is the way we need to move forward.
whatever. Yeah, I think we can amend that however we need to make it clear to all of us.
But as you work with an applicant when he comes in, does that be pretty clear? If I'm coming in and I say, hey, I'm doing
Thank you.
conservation, you can say, all right, fine. You take away your primary conservation, which we call adjusted gross yield. You then take half of what's left and you can build your homes on one half, the other stays conservation. I mean,
Yeah, I think we're more clearly defining what our
Gotcha.
expectations are looking for. And I think they'll look at this and be like, what does this mean? What does this mean? We could say, well, our board just talked about it. This means this. Primary open space is defined as this. It's shown in this section. And as far as the deliverable, here's your checklist. You have to have this to go to the planning board. So, yeah, I think we're on the right track.
Cool.
One other thing that I'd just like to bring up about secondary conservation land, which we have the tiering in here for, which I think is a good thing to have for the builder to reference what he's gonna select as a secondary conservation land. The other thing would be, and this might be in the form of a question, all the secondary conservation land does not have to be in the same or a continual piece of land.
Contiguous
right?
to,
It could be, you could have some farmland over here that you might designate as secondary conservation, some fields over here, you know, not all in the same connected, like this shows, and I'm not picking on your thing, but this shows all together. I just want to make sure they understand that the tiering might not allow that to be all together. You know, so the houses might be spattered a little bit. You know, I think that's what we're really looking for in the conservation, not to have 50% clear and 50% houses jammed on the other side. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Steve. You know, we and even on some of the conservation lands discussions we've had previous years ago, you know, we're trying to build off of what's surrounding the development. So if there's some open space in another development, we want to connect those two things together, kind of create like a migration path for deer if necessary, or to go
And
to
they
that
might have
tree.
to all be together.
Yep.
They might have to all be together.
well, as
But it
long
does-
as you
doesn't
can split it
have
up
to
that
be.
you can give access where nobody's crossing private property, you can pocket park it all around.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I
But
just think that was fair to say.
But we want folks to be creative. You know, we've had instances where, you know, people see a development, they're like, why are all these houses clustered together? They just look so dense. They don't necessarily see the woods in the back and understand that's part of the same property. It's to their marketable benefit to spread some of that land out.
Because we do say, yeah, here's our priority. However, in certain portions of town, priorities defined may be altered by the town in order to maximize the achievement of the goals of RCD, which addresses your point.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
and
necessarily-
Greg, that you might want to have something but another neighborhoods
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make it useful for.
I mean, I think a lot of time a developer would rather have it all in one big clump
Oh, yeah.
so they can get their roads and infrastructure there versus you may have a set over here and a set over here. That's going to require a little bit more roads and infrastructure, but that's why we have the plan.
Yeah, my medium-term goals is for, I mean, you guys have been asked to do above and beyond what 99% of planning boards need to do. I'll just be honest. You guys have a heavy burden on your guys' selves and your volunteers. And so what I would like to achieve out of this is that when we're having a site walk and charrette on a development like this, and they're pushing all that open space to the side, you guys can have an honest conversation with them and say, hey, we're the advisory board. We think you could design this differently. Here's my opinion on it. You could maybe move it around over here, or our rules say you can disperse it this way. Here's our tiering of what you set aside. You know, just reconsider before you go down this rabbit hole and spend tens of thousands of dollars on engineering. You know, we've tried to clearly define these terms for you for your benefit. Here's what they are.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how clear it was before, you know?
It had room for improvement.
And I certainly, I mean, you know, with everything being online and it not being really papered anymore, you know, I think having multiple, you know, graphics is, you know, the way to go.
Yep.
You can have, you can have this one, you can have one where it's spattered about, you can have one where it, you know, shows the adjacent properties. So you're trying to keep things contiguous.
And a lot of it, when we do the charrette, and Karen, you've mentioned this, that, you know, you're supposed to start with your clean sheet of paper. Here's my primary conservation land. And then you're looking at where I could put conservation, and then I could lay in some houses, and then I would lay in roads. And the applicant comes, it's all laid out, here's what I've got, and it's all right here. So I think that comes upon the people attending the charrette to more fully understand how it's supposed to work.
I think hold the applicant's feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Have them perform it like that. So.
Yeah.
And I will do a plug for the UNC School of Government. They had a great session last week that talked about kind of the stages of development that they go through. They've gone through so many meetings with attorneys and the banks and their pro forma and all these things to try to make this work out before they even talk to me. I don't want to discredit the amount of legwork they have to do to even get to the entitlement stage. So it's not like they come with a blank sheet of paper and they said, "Hey guys, design the subdivision for me." They worked on this for months and months and months before they even get to the town. And I'd be happy to share that with you guys. But per that point, yeah, we're also not going to take any more that, "Hey, we designed it, take it or leave it." Well, then we're going to leave it. We want to show our rules, our design for the benefit of everyone.
Question for you, Greg, and to Steve's point, is there any benefit in adding verbiage about conservation land may be contiguous or non-contiguous in there? Because, from a builder's perspective, I get a soils report back, and that says that I got some really bad alluvial soils out here, still in a buildable area, but I've got, I may want to designate this area and surround it with houses and let that be part of the conservation area. It can work to the developer's advantage as well as preserving it.
We do have some existing language on there that talked about, connecting ecological corridors or connecting riparian corridors, regardless of private ownership tracts. So we have some language in there already, as well as some of the language from the Randall Arndt, books and concepts that we have. I'm not sure if we need to restate it, but I do think as a policy, we need to let people know that that's important to us, that, per everyone's point, like, we don't want this over here and this over here. That's not the creativity we're looking for. That's not necessarily what's best with the land. That's not what's going to work with the topography.
Yeah, I think as long as this body does what we're supposed to do, I think we've got pretty much the tools that we need. We just have to be willing to do
Apply them.
our job
Right.
the way that it's meant to be done.
I think we've got good marching orders for Jaslyn on some more
Yeah,
visual exhibits. So
I agree.
why write it out if we can show it?
Can I clarify with open space? It does not have to be, like we've mentioned before, like a field or like usable, like it could be the woods, correct?
Yes, yeah. So a common example of that in a conventional subdivision is everybody's got their big acre lots, but we still set aside open space as kind of a perimeter buffer. So it's not conservation lands in perpetuity, but it's lands that we just never cut the trees down on because they create a visual barrier between the neighborhoods, and it's good for everybody. That's a common approach.
So I guess we send this back for them for a little bit more tweaking of some visuals for us to look at. And then I think the only text thing we see is primary open space to basically copy and paste. And I knew you had wanted to, and it might be off topic here. Did you not want to do something with taking view sheds out of primary?
Oh, well, it looks like we did. I don't see it in the primary. It's
In
in
the-
secondary,
It's in secondary.
yeah, which is fine.
In the definitions?
Yeah, is that a definition that's in there now?
That's just the definitions that Bill has got as proposed definitions.
Yeah, I thought view shed is,
Going to be secondary, but we can move it out of that primary
Yeah.
part. It doesn't get pulled out immediately as their primary part. Because you still got view sheds regardless, but it can be part of the secondary.
Yeah, just to expand on that, I don't want some of these priorities of conservation lands that shouldn't be a deal breaker for a development. You don't want them to say, "Okay, I'm going to turn down your development because I don't think you're preserving view sheds enough."
Yeah.
I think that's too subjective. That's a little too arbitrary. If we're going to deny projects, it should be based on our land use goals and our future land use map or our comprehensive plan.
And this,
These are just priorities for when you start drawing it.
and that's view sheds from thoroughfares. And I always like to point out,
Well, it just says view sheds in the definition.
uh,
On the last page, the definitions. You've got adjusted track yield, or adjusted
Oh, okay.
track
I
acre
was-
yield, conservation land, open space, primary open space.
Okay, I was looking at the view shed priorities. And,
Yeah, no, everything stays there on that.
Secondary.
Yeah, secondary stays there.
okay, all right,
Just a typo on the definition you had on that back page, I think.
okay.
We had discussed about pulling that out of primary.
Yeah.
And so really the only text amendments here looks like some illustrations and then that primary open space, a copy and paste of conservation, the primary conservation, but just renamed. And then she works on illustrations
Yep.
similar to that work.
This is resident, this is for RCD, right?
Yeah. Is there any more recommendations from you for staff to button up
No.
on that? And then maybe we see it again.
Just to be clear though, I would hold on to Bill's definition of primary open space in conjunction with cutting and pasting the conservation.
You mean to leave that sentence at the end of it?
Yeah.
All right, and noted, we can do that. Y'all,
Yeah, I don't think that makes much of a difference.
no, I think the bigger thing was making sure that we align with
Right, it's
the
the same.
streams,
They know
the,
what it is, right?
right, gotcha.
So Karen, you got that information?
Nope.
That's what I want. That's because I'm not taking any notes.
We'll have it
so-
recorded, and I do think this
We
was
can
good
get it.
discussion and giving staff direction. So we're not,
Okay,
I'm not gonna hold you to the fire on the exact wording of any of these sentences, but I think this gives staff adequate direction to give you another draft, a more complete draft next month.
And I think your checklist is spot on for sketch plans. I think to Steve's point, time to review, but I think from initial
Yeah,
look,
it all looks good. Just
Yeah,
not really
yeah.
able to- It's tough to do it.
Good.
when you first get it.
if you're getting house in order, that's perfect for the sketch plan part. All right, so we're good to move to new business.
yeah, well, let me make sure I got the process right. I sent a note in. You got it too on Exhibit 2B where we talk about, we've got the applicant here today
Oh, yeah, when we're talking about the signs.
who is, going to seek approval for his gate entrance. Well, we now have that in Exhibit 2B, line 23.
So does that mean it has to be that early?
That, I think, would be, again, an unintended consequence that we're kind of seeing now. So I don't know that we would force them into a gate design that early.
Let
That
me restate that for everybody. So, Bill said something today that said, our new checklist says we want these kind of sign details up front at the schematic plan stage. Whereas previously, in the case of today, we basically said, okay, tell us what your subdivision looks like. We'll approve it. We'll take it through planning board to get your entitlements, but you might not necessarily have all the design details down. We technically require you to come back to the planning board and show us what your signage for your development looks like. It's kind of redundant. It's not really anything we're going to deny, but it does have the basis of providing the public an update on the subdivision and letting them know exactly what they should anticipate when this development gets brought forward. We do have that applicant here today that can speak on that. I really don't think it's going to have any concern or any objections. In fact, we've looked at the gate design almost identically, just without the B.
I think he,
But-
showed it in his, it's pretty similar to what his whole subdivision was based on, but I don't know what,
And that's what I was saying. If it's in, actually, Giselle's handout has B23. It's in that section, which I think we've seen. And if you go into UDO, it simply says before the final plat. And I'm
Right.
thinking, can we simplify that a little bit and take out the line before where it says before the final plat?
And
Because that way, he's not going to have to come back here again, unless there's some gigantic change. If it's some, I'll say, limited changes, Greg takes care of that.
yeah, I mean, and this is about as administrative as you can get in terms of sending it. It's kind of overkill to send it to you guys, to what the signage looks like. But so we can tweak that. But I just got Bill's email today. It's not part of your packet. It's just some food for thought. you know, that maybe we don't have to go through this every time for every subdivision.
I
Or
would
we have a
agree.
separate meeting for signage.
I would agree.
I
If we
think-
see the concept of what they're doing at the beginning, then
Yeah.
leave it to administrative at the back end of
Right.
this,
Right.
then I don't want to be in the sign business. So with that said, I guess we are going to move to new business now. Discussion, possible consideration of an entry sign for Beckingham subdivision per section D918J. D. Subdivision entry and perimeter walls and entry monuments are not required to be of any specific height or style, but are subject to review and approval planning board prior to the start of construction. So do you want to say a few things before we let Tom, or do we want, how do we want to proceed? Because I know Tom came with a slideshow, which Tom likes to do very well.
I think it's self-explanatory. I will let Mr. Waters introduce his signage.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the planning board and Weddington town staff and community. I'm Tom Waters with Provident Land, and we're very excited to be developing the Beckingham community in Weddington. So tonight we have brought forth, it's really the same gated entry stone column monumentation that we presented initially. And then again, when we came before you for the cobblestone pavers approval, it's really the same thing. So if you could show the picture, y'all know the site. Okay, there we go. So basically you gave approval for the cobblestone pavers that are represented in this picture. This is made up of stone columns all the way around the entrance. It's going to have decorative lanterns on it. It'll have 2 gates, electronic automatic gates. And then I think there's another picture that shows the actual Beckingham sign. There it is in the middle there. So that's going to be paying attention to any height and size restrictions where it says the word Beckingham. So I will say that conceptually, the stone and the columns, the cobblestone pavers, the curbing, the landscaped areas, those are pretty accurate on this rendering. The actual gates are going to be a little more ornate than what's presented. It's going to have some spikes on it. It has a little more decoration down at the bottom. It's not finished yet, the actual iron gates, if you will, but they're conceptually will look just like that. And then the logo has changed slightly. I guess the graphic of Beckingham is just a little bit different than that. The marketing folks used a different font. So that'll be coming forth. And then everything will be heavily landscaped. It'll be irrigated, lighting. That's basically it. And I'm here to answer any and all questions.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Planning board have any questions for Mr. Waters?
I have no questions. When I initially did, but then your presentation there, my question was, where's the call box? And that was in your presentation. So it shows where the call box is. And so you get cars backed up behind it. So I have no questions. I think it's a beautiful gate,
Thank
beautiful entrance.
All right, no questions for Mr. Waters. We got want a discussion or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve if there's no other comments.
Got a second?
Do we need to do anything as far as lighting goes with it, just to make sure that it conforms to our lighting specifications?
Yeah, for clarification, they can't be internally lit. They need to be externally lit. So basically, they need to have a light shine on the signage, not have it glowing with LEDs or neon or anything behind it. So
I'm assuming we're accepting the design, not the lighting. That the lighting has to meet the town's lighting ordinance. Is that?
yeah, I would say that it needs to meet the town's ordinance regardless. So we're not
We can make that
granting a
we can make
waiver
that
to have
part of
it
the motion.
not meet rules.
Yeah.
It's got to be externally lit regardless.
Okay.
I'll make a second.
Got a second. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
All right, that concludes our new business. Moving to update from town planner.
Thanks for your patience, members of the board. So at the November meeting, we did have one subdivision that was up for a vote. That applicant actually contacted staff and withdrew their application. So if you guys know that was the project on Forest Lawn, that application for 12 homes was withdrawn. So the town council did not take any action on that. It was not discussed.
Did they say why?
They declined to discuss why.
Okay.
Staff is working on finding that out.
Ooh, I might not.
But they withdrew and they do not intend to reconsider the item at this time. That was stated in their email. So basically, no planning items were discussed at that meeting. Coming up at the end of this month or next month would be the Aria subdivision would go to town council in December, just to say that they're allowed to be on wells rather than public water, which you guys have already discussed and recommended. And then the next item that would go before you guys, probably this December, will be the Toll Brothers Morris Farm development, which is located on Weddington Matthews Road. That has not been formally applied for. That should be applied for by requirement by the end of this week. But I do anticipate that coming before this board in December, which we meet prior to Christmas. I know it's still a busy time for everyone with the holidays, but we will have a scheduled meeting in December, particularly if that item is on the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Greg. We'll open it up to board member comments. We'll start at Bill's End.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you enjoy the holidays, time with your family. We all have so much to be thankful for. And that's it. Of course, the annual thank you, staff, for all you do. I mean, that's kind of a given.
Oh, yeah.
I echo that. I enjoyed Thanksgiving.
So thank you everyone for attending tonight, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks everybody for coming. Reminder that our tree lighting is Friday,
That's right.
5:30. And hope everybody will come. And I don't know what font you chose for the new sign, but I think it was probably a good idea.
I appreciate the staff. You make everything easier for us. I appreciate the work that everybody did around the table. Thank you to everyone who came out, applicants and town alike. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And yeah, let's come to tree lighting and make it a festive event.
Well, I agree with everyone. Share the same sentiments. Thanks, staff. As always, y'all do a great job. Pleasure to have you on board. Looking forward to more work. So happy Thanksgiving and tree lighting Friday. See y'all there. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Adjourn. Thank you.